In 1960, America was in a race against the Soviet Union, a race to put a human being into space first. The entire world was watching, and in a private clinic in Albuquerque, New Mexico, 13 women were quietly doing something extraordinary, something that nobody would talk about for the next 30 years, something that history almost forgot completely. Their names were Jerrie Cobb, Wally Funk, Hart, and 10 others. They were extraordinary pilots. All of the candidates were accomplished pilots. Lovelace and Cobb reviewed the records of more than 700 women pilots in order to select candidates. They did not invite anyone with fewer than 1,000 hours of flight experience. Some of them had logged more flying hours than the men already chosen as Mercury astronauts. Jerrie Cobb alone had 7,000 hours in the air. She held 3 world aviation records. She had been flying since she was 16 years old, and in 1960, she walked into the Lovelace Clinic in Albuquerque and took the same test as the Mercury 7 astronauts, all 75 of them, every single one. The tests were not easy. Wally Funk spent over 10 hours in an isolation tank. This was much more grueling than NASA's test, which left astronaut trainees alone in a room for 3 hours. They were spun in machines that rotated their bodies on 3 axes simultaneously. They were subjected to every physical and psychological test ever devised for human spaceflight. And then the results came back. 68% of the women passed, where only 56% of male trainees passed. The women passed at higher rate than the men. Many of the women performed better than the men in certain psychological tests. Jerrie Cobb personally passed all the training exercises, ranking in the top 2% of all astronaut candidates of both genders. The top 2% of every astronaut candidate, male or female, ever tested. And then they waited. They waited for the letter, calling them to the next stage of training. The women were very excited, and one of them said her bags were packed before she finished reading the letter. The letter never came. Instead, a different letter arrived. NASA found out what Lovelace was doing and did not want anything to do with women in space. The women soon received a letter telling them not to come, and the program ended. Not because they had failed, not because the test showed they were unqualified, because they were women. That was the only reason. Jerrie Cobb refused to accept this. She went to Washington. She testified before Congress. She stood in front of a committee of men and said, "We seek only a place in our nation's space future without discrimination. We ask as citizens of this nation to be allowed to participate." And then John Glenn, America's most celebrated astronaut, testified. Astronaut John Glenn stated at the hearing that men go off and fight the wars and fly the airplanes, and the fact that women are not in this field is a fact of our social order. That was the entire argument, and Congress accepted it, and the program was cancelled. 3 months later, the Soviet Union launched a woman into space, Valentina Tereshkova. She orbited the Earth 48 times. While Jerrie Cobb, who had outscored John Glenn on every single test, sat in America, grounded. Not because she could not fly, because the men in the room had decided she should not. America did not send a woman to space until 1983, 23 years after these 13 women proved they were qualified. Jerrie Cobb spent those years flying alone, not in space, over the Amazon rainforest, delivering medicines and supplies to communities that had nothing. She piloted new air routes across the hazardous Andes Amazon rainforest using self-drawn maps. In 1999, the last surviving members of Mercury 13 sat in the Kennedy Space Center. They watched Eileen Collins become the first woman to command a space shuttle mission. Collins looked at them before the launch and said, "If it were not for you, I would not be here." Wally Funk, the youngest of the 13, finally went to space in 2021. She was 82 years old. She had waited 61 years, from the moment she passed every test to the moment she finally flew. 61 years. Their names were Jerrie Cobb, Wally Funk, Jane Hart, and 10 others. 13 women who passed every test, who packed their bags, who waited for a letter, and received a different one instead. Your history teacher never told you their names. Now you know them. Follow for more stories History Never Told You.